Hola, hola, amigas. Welcome to another episode of Modern Latina in Midlife. I'm Sonia Flores, holistic life and business coach, podcast producer, intuitive advisor, and your host. Thank you for being here. And if you're new here, welcome. Today's episode is actually an interview that I did on my friend's podcast, the Pivot Point podcast with Laura Dionicio. She interviewed me and she had me share my story in a way that I never have before of all the pivots that I've done in my life. And it was powerful. It was great. And I thought after I finished that interview with her, I should share my story on the podcast a little bit more in depth on my podcast. But once her episode released and I listened to it, it actually made me cry. She is such a powerful coach and she has such amazing questions that it really reflected back to me, honestly, what a badass I am. And I just thought this was more powerful than me just sharing my story on my own. So I asked her if I can share the interview that she recorded and released on her podcast on Modern Latina in Midlife, and she has agreed. So I'm sharing that with you. That's what that is. That conversation is today, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you get to know me a little bit more in depth.
Welcome, Sonia, to the Pivot Point podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. One, because we haven't had a chance to speak one on one, really. So I'm just as curious as the listeners to hear about your story. And two, because I do follow you on social media and I'm always like, blue chakra, like, tell me more about that. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. What a nice surprise. And yes, I'm glad that we're getting to connect one on one. So appreciate the invite.
Yeah. And just so the listeners know, Sonia is one of the reasons why I decided to start this podcast because I was on a Monday mentoring call, is what we call it. And she was leading like a business topic about funnels. And she said something like, you need to think about what are the ways in which you can serve in a way that feels good and natural. And I was like, well, I love to talk. So Sonia is a key reason why I started this podcast. So thank you, Sonia, for
You're
sharing
very
all your wise
welcome.
words.
Thank you. I'm glad you found your way, right? Like the thing that sparks you. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So, just so our listeners get to know you, I'm going to go ahead and read Sonia's amazing bio. Sonia Flores is a holistic business coach, intuitive advisor, and podcast producer. She helps soul led women share their message and gifts with the world by starting and growing their business or launching a podcast. Case in point, me. She's also the host of Modern Latina in Midlife, where she shares her journey of navigating the third chapter in a woman's life, offering stories about business, podcasting, spiritual awakening, and personal growth. Her work is rooted in the belief that everyone has a unique gift to share with the world. And when your message is clear and your energies aligned, you live in fulfillment of your life's purpose. Welcome, Sonia. Thank you for being
Thank you.
here.
Of course. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So even just reading this, there's so much I want to ask. But first, I just want to get to know you as well. So listeners, it's not just for you. This episode's for me too. But how did you get started? How did you get into this work? Were you always an
Mm,
entrepreneur or did you start? Oh, you're shaking your head. Yes. Tell us.
I think that I've been an entrepreneur through and through inside in one way or another from a very young age. It's in my genes. It's in my DNA.
Hmm.
My grandparents were multi-entrepreneurs. My dad was an entrepreneur for a short period of time as well. So I think it's just always been in my blood. I first started off in corporate America. I worked in corporate for 18 years
Hmm.
in marketing and product development. And I was international marketing manager for a national brand in the US. So I did that for 18 years. So my journey did not start in entrepreneurship. Although I went to school for business and entrepreneurship was a part of that, I very much was like, doing the corporate thing because that's what like my parents immigrated to this country too, from like we could live a different life. And so I was following that path. But yeah, it just wasn't fulfilling anymore. I just felt like something was off. I was not enjoying what I was marketing, the product that I was marketing. And I just always felt that there was something different, something out there for me. I just kept trying to find in corporate, and I wasn't finding it, and I wasn't reaching it. So I just became really burnt out and working a ton of hours. I became a single mom, and it just was really long hours and travel, and it just wasn't it. I was really, really burned out. So I took a sabbatical for a
Mhm.
couple of years. Once I entered into my next relationship, and he gave me the opportunity to stay home. We blended our families. He had a son, I had two sons, and so I had the opportunity to stay home for a couple of years. And I have so many interests. I couldn't just, and I'm so multi-passionate. I'm a manifesting generator, if that means anything to you. So I have a lot of interest, and I couldn't just like sit still and do nothing. I mean, the boys were teenagers, so I was pretty much at home alone all day by myself, and just kind of needed something to do. And so I started like a small side gig, like as a virtual assistant, just to like be busy for a few hours out of the day. And it just started growing from there. I was like one of those online chat people for like an online bookstore for somebody, this little bookstore that he had. And I just started like, oh, have you thought about doing this? He was like doing these catalogs that he was sending into like the prison system for these books that he was for his store, basically for his books. And I'm like, oh, have you thought about adding like Spanish titles? And have you thought about like, how are you advertising this? Are you sending out newsletters? Like, I just couldn't help but to like, do that, because that's all I did for, 18 years. And everything I would propose, he's like, "Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, and let's do that." And then I thought, I can do this for other people. Like I started just doing this from home a few hours a day, and I thought, "Oh, I could do this for other people." So I started doing that for other entrepreneurs, and just very, very part-time. And
Mhm.
that's kind of how the journey into entrepreneurship started. So very different. Well, yeah, very different from what I do today. That's where it started.
Yeah, I love it. I already have so many questions. So I'm curious because you mentioned you found in your new partnership, you had the opportunity to go on a sabbatical, and I'm curious, was that an easy decision to make? I'm only thinking about honestly my own experience and also those of my clients where I actually have clients now where they have the opportunity to take a break, but the whole I call it the corporatism is like so ingrained in their system and their nervous system and their mindset that like it's like they can't even relax. Even if financially they're supported, whether it's through a partner or they have the savings, it's like this need, especially if it's like the person who's an overachiever and they're burnt out, but they still can't help themselves and they think that they have to keep going. So I'm curious, did you go through any of that? Like, what was it like when you were just like, okay, I'm going to take a sabbatical? How did you go from go
Yeah.
getter, burnt out, doing all the things to like, I'm going to take a
Yeah.
break?
Oh, that's such a great question. It took a while for me to be convinced of that, of course, because I was single mom, and I was pretty much supporting my sons by myself at that time. And it was hard to go from I've got control of this to like depending on somebody else. So yeah, that was difficult, but I was so burned out that it just felt like a relief. It felt like
Mhm.
a welcome relief to like finally be like, okay, I can take a breath and just allow this to be. And it was scary for sure, but, I just always thought back to I like, nobody's gonna take my experience and my education away. Like, I can always, jump back in if I needed to, or
Mhm.
if something didn't work out, or, all of course, all those things went through my head, but
I just knew and I just had confidence in myself that if need be, that I could figure it out. So I just went for it. It was scary. It was scary for sure, but there wasn't a lack of things to keep me busy for sure. With 3 teenage boys and just keeping a household, and it was busy, and it was a really nice welcome, to be completely honest with you. It was really nice
Mm.
just being able to relax and just take a break and just be like, it's okay to allow myself to receive.
Can we just have a quick heart to heart? If you're anything like me, you have a vision board full of big dreams and a notes app full of brilliant ideas. But when it actually comes time to sit down and do the thing, suddenly the laundry feels urgent, the inbox is screaming, and working in total isolation starts to feel, well, a little lonely. We weren't meant to build our empires in a vacuum. That is exactly why I created the co working circle. It's a quiet, focused, and deeply supportive space for womenpreneurs, podcasters, and creatives in this community to come together and actually move the needle. But here's the magic: when we work in a collective circle, our intentions are amplified. There is a tangible shift in the room when a group of powerhouse women all decide to focus at once. We feed off of each other's energy, we lift the mental fog together, and suddenly that deep work you've been procrastinating on, it just flows. Twice a month, we meet on Zoom for 90 minutes. We start with a quick energy clearing and intention setting. Then we dive into 60 minutes of pure quiet focus. No makeup required, messy buns very much encouraged, and zero pressure to be on. We work on our own, but together on Zoom. And then we come back together to share our progress, get feedback from one another, and potentially even collaborate. It's just $11 a month to join us, and you can cancel anytime. I would love to hold space for you there. Head to the link in my show notes or visit bluechakrastudio.com/co working circle to grab your spot. Let's stop hustling alone and start flowing together. I'll see you in the circle.
I want to ask more questions because I specifically am thinking of one client right now, similar situation, except like in their situation, there's a young child. So even though this client of mine knows it's like intellectually, she knows it's good that I'm not working right now because I'm available for our young child.
Mhm.
But in the back of her mind, she's so used to being financially independent, like her identity is wrapped up around that. So I'm thinking of the listener who feels the same way, who's like, yes, I know I'm so blessed to have this support. And either they feel like a certain kind of way because they're like, I'm used to providing for myself, or they feel kind of guilty, like, shouldn't I struggle? Isn't that part of the experience? So, like, for the listener who is feeling those type of things, talk about, because you said you had to be willing to receive. So talk about that because that's huge. I had to learn that and I'm still learning that as well. So please.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know at the time that that's what I was learning how to do. I know now, looking back and then having this conversation with you, I had never really thought about it that way, but it was, it just really took a leap of faith.
Mhm.
It just really took this, just kind of going for it. It just, I don't, I, there was, I didn't have another plan. I didn't have a way to like, you know, purposely or consciously like regulate my system or nervous system or anything like that, or any practice to say, oh yeah, this is what I did to like help me get there. It was
Mhm.
just a really blind trust and just knowing that I couldn't keep going the way that I was going. Like
Mm.
I was making myself sick, and I knew that it wasn't healthy for my sons also for me to keep showing up in that way. Um, and so it just was truly just a leap of faith. And, it's, I'm trying to think of like what I did to learn to receive, but it was a lot of mental talk. It was a lot of mental, like, this is okay. Like, it is okay. Like, just let it be this way. I had to constantly be talking to myself and just be like, this is okay. It's all right. It's okay to do this. I don't know where it came from.
Mhm.
But it was like, "Look, this little voice, that I had to tap into to like constantly tell myself it's okay to do this.
Mhm. I love that, and what I just heard, like, in your story as well is, so yes, this is okay, but also I couldn't keep going. So it's almost a reminder of, like, we can't go back there.
Mm-mm.
So it's
Yeah.
almost like building up the reasons as to why we have to face the scary thing of doing something differently. Like, we can't go back there. That's terrible.
Hmm.
This is not
Hmm.
healthy example for my kids. So I have gotten a lot of like parents out there who are afraid to dream big and go after their dreams because they're worried about like, well, I have responsibilities to my kids. And what I love that you're saying is like, well, the way I was showing up, even if you presumably made pretty good money, is just not healthy for your kids. So I love that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also learn how to receive. Like you had to. It's almost like
Hmm.
there is no choice but to move forward is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And I like what you just pointed out. I think that a big part of what has driven me since I became a mother was what example am I setting for my son? And that I'm glad that you brought that in because that has been at the crux of every difficult decision that I have made, including having to divorce their father. Everything that I have done, and now even them as adults, when they question something that I may be doing that they're not in agreement with, I have to sit back and think about, okay, um, am I, my first reaction is like, oh, I got to make this right so they're not upset. But then I have to step back and think about, wait a minute, what is it really? What am I really trying to accomplish by doing this? And I have to go back to, no, 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 we need to break cycles. I need to set an example. Like, this is what I would want them to do for their daughters or their children. So it always goes back to how is, what example am I setting? So thank you for bringing that in. I hadn't never even thought about that. You're so good, Laura.
Thank
I
you,
love
Sonia.
this.
Yeah, I genuinely am thinking from the perspective of a listener, like, and specifically the person, because you mentioned like even like the decision to leave their father. I have heard from many friends and clients like this staying in a relationship that no longer serves them, whether it's like to the level of it's toxic or it's just not working. And I would love to hear from your perspective because I can't speak to this. It's not my personal experience. I can say, like, well, yeah, of course, you don't want to show that as an example. But from your perspective, being a mother and having had made that choice and other probably difficult decisions, what would you say to the listener who is just like struggling with the choice of, like, I think I know what the next right step is, but I just feel stuck because I'm thinking of a single mother or a married mother who is currently not working, let's say, and who feels stuck as they're like, oh, but how? What do I do next? Like, what would you say to that listener or to those types of listeners who are in that situation?
That's very touching. First of all, I'd like to say to that woman, like, I see you and I understand the fear and it's valid. And there's a way out if that's what you really want. There is a way out. I like to always tell people to like follow the nudges, to follow those breadcrumbs, follow that flutter, that little nudge, that little message, the joy or the what your body is telling you that you need to do, right? Like your body doesn't lie to you. And if you're feeling like this is it, right? Like this is in where I want to be anymore, trust that and just start to like very slowly like look at opportunities of ways to how you could potentially have a different outcome or take the next step. Like it doesn't have to be like I'm just gonna jump, off the cliff, even though that's what I did when I left corporate. But I also knew that my cushion was my education and my skills to start to look for, like, to just open doors, like take that one little next step or open that next door. Maybe you talk to people, maybe you mention it to a coach, maybe just follow those little flutters of intuition of maybe you feel called to listen to a podcast episode or to read a book. There's always your guides. And I'm very big on like following your intuition, your higher self, your guides, whatever you want to call it, that energy, just your higher self, your guides always trying to guide you in the right direction. They're always leaving breadcrumbs and the next door for you to open. So start to like just pay attention to those little steps, because it doesn't have to be taking a huge step. It's just the one next step. That's all you need to do is just take that one little next aligned step and start to open those doors. And then they just start opening. They just start opening. You just start finding your way.
I love that. And for listeners who aren't familiar in the realm of like guides and intuition and nudges, could you describe like what a nudge could potentially feel like, what that maybe is like for you, or what you've heard clients, like how you've heard them describe it, just so they're kind of like, oh, I didn't know that was a nudge. I just thought that was, like
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah. Like for me, a nudge, I'm trying to think back to like when I didn't know this language, at the time when I was thinking about like, say, leaving my ex-husband, I didn't know what a nudge was, right? I didn't know this language, but very, I have very vivid memories of those almost like rude awakenings where like my guides were like, my gosh, already, they're like, they were shaking me. And I didn't know at the time that that's what it was. But I feel like you just kind of know, like you just feel it in your body. If there's constant resistance to something, that's your, like, if you just feel like, I just don't want to do it, check in with yourself. Like, just stop and think about, am I resisting this because, because I don't know how? Because I'm scared? Or am I resisting this because this is not at all what I want to do? And I think that one of the ways that we can maybe like help people understand that is I feel like a lot of us are told what to do when we're trying to figure out what to do with our career when we're young, trying to pick a college or go to college or not. We know it starts very young, younger than that. But I feel like that's a really good example of when we're told this is what you got to do. Because I know that's what I was told, but I really wanted to do something different. But I did what I was told to do. Um, and so that I feel is a good example for many of us where, that if you were told what to do, that wasn't really what you wanted to do. And that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like you do it even with the resistance, even knowing that deep down inside, this isn't make me happy. This isn't feel fulfilling to me. I don't know if that helps or if that answers your question.
Oh no, that was really helpful. What I got from that, like as like the simplest breakdown. First of all, I love that you mentioned this was not something that came naturally to you, because that way, like to whoever's listening, they might be like, well, of course, Sonia, like she's an intuitive coach. Of course she knows how to do this. But see, listeners, like she didn't start off this way. I for sure did not start off that way. My background's in engineering, like way far from intuition. But
Oh, yeah.
what I heard you say, like a good place to start is, because we all know what resistance feels like. We know what that feels like. We know what it feels like physically. We know what it feels like emotionally. And I think something beautiful that you said is to really think about and feel into what is behind the resistance. Like, where is it coming from? Instead of just accepting resistance as is and saying, well, that's my sign to stop. What I'm hearing from you is that's not necessarily your sign to stop. It's your sign to go within and like get curious and ask yourself, like what you said, is it because I'm scared? Is it because I don't know how? Because if it's any of those things, then that's not really your sign to stop. It's your sign to keep going. Right? That's what I.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, absolutely. And once you start to take that little step forward in that direction, it'll guide you. If it's the right thing for you, you will know, you will feel it. You'll feel that spark to keep going. And if it's not, you'll feel it. You'll feel like, oh, you know what? Maybe this wasn't it. Let me try something different. And it's okay. And it's okay to take that step and or two or three even, and then go, yeah, you know what? That really wasn't it. And that's okay, because that could open a door to something else, or at a bare minimum, it's data. It's data to say, okay, that wasn't the thing. Let me try something else. But don't stay stuck. It's like, try something if you're feeling stuck or feeling like maybe this isn't right for me or there's something more for me. I always say, just you can't decide or you don't know for sure, just try something, because at least it gives you data or gets you closer to where you need to be, as opposed to being in the same spot a year from today or 5 years from today.
And for the listener who's like, oh crap, I've been trying to think my way out of this, hey, me too. So it's like, it's okay. But now you're listening, right? And so it's like, yes, now just try something. Don't stay stuck, collect data. There is no such thing as bad
Mhm.
data in this case, is what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
Because whether it was the right step or not, at least now you know. So you're still
Exactly.
getting closer. So I love that.
Exactly.
And Sonia, one thing that like I have never heard it said this way before, and I'm so glad you specifically said this, is that you said that your cushion was your education and skills. I love that because typically when we think cushion, we think financial cushion. So talk to us a little bit more about that because I've never heard anyone describe it that way. So for the listener who's like, wait, don't I just have to make sure I have like enough savings or like that I'm financially taken care of? Like, what other cushion could I have in order to make this bold decision to do that, whatever that next thing is?
Yeah. Like, that's a really good point. So I feel like I did have several cushions that
Hmm.
I had a plan A, plan B, and plan C very loosely set up in my mind. I did have, like I said, I knew that I can count on my education and my skills. I knew that there was no way that I was going to just, I mean, what was the other option? I mean, there was no way I was going to let my sons go hungry. I was going
Hmm.
to, figure it out. I was going to get a job, whether it was a job at retail or a job back in corporate or a job, whatever. I was going to figure it out. And I'm saying job because most of us are, naturally, of course, we live in, capitalist society. We need, money to survive. So of course, that's always a big worry for many of us. So I just knew that I I could figure it out in terms of the finances. I may have had a small savings, like tiny, so that wasn't even like, oh, I got that to rely on, so it wasn't even that. But then I also, of course, knew that I had friends and family. If anything went south, that they could help. And not that I ever depend on family or anything like that. I just felt like if it came down to it, I wasn't alone. But more than anything, it was okay. I can handle this. Like I had me.
Mm. That's the biggest cushion there. It's like you had
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. That was the biggest cushion.
Yeah.
And just like knowing that I would never just, my sons were my motivation. Let's just put it that way. So,
I love that. I love that.
yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, because you, like, the way you started, you're 18 years in corporate. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but I was also 18 years in corporate before I
Oh,
left.
really?
So we're
Oh,
like we're
wow.
like corporate leaving
Right there.
twinsies. Yeah.
Yes,
18th
we
birthday,
are.
like
Yeah.
it's like our experience became an adult and we're like we're
It, there you go. And left the coop.
yeah, we left the coop. You got this
Yeah.
corporate. You're 18 now. So we totally got
Get out
distracted.
there. Make it happen.
Yeah. Okay. So you just talked about an experience that I think a lot of us can relate to, a lot of the listeners. You worked hard, you climbed the corporate ladder, and probably on the outside you looked great, probably had the accolades, great money, like all that, and things still felt off. You were burnt out. What I'm really curious, and I'm just going to be so straight up with you, Sonia. This question is not just for the listeners, for me too. So like as somebody who also felt burnt out many times in corporate, and I know it's because I was just like an overperformer and things like that. For someone who is thinking about becoming an entrepreneur or already is, how did you make sure you didn't down the path of burnout? Because I feel like it's easier as an entrepreneur because work becomes something you love. It's really easy to overwork. So what was the experience like for you? Did you start overworking or were you just like, nope, not doing that again?
Yeah. Great question. Well, when I started working again and I started like my little part-time business as a virtual assistant, really, it was very part-time. It was just to like occupy my time and make some little extra money for vacations and things like that for the boys. So it was very, very part-time. So it was not burnout at all. It was very like I didn't really need it. So it was fun and it was just fun the time. And so I did that for probably 3 years and then that relationship went south. And I had to almost overnight pretty much leave.
Sorry, the
And
work relationship?
no, my partner
Who was
relationship, my
Oh, who
home
was supporting?
relationship,
Oh,
who was
okay.
supporting me and my sons. At this point, my oldest son had already moved out on his own. So it was just my younger son and I. But he, my son had a health emergency that was going to require a lot of my time, and my partner didn't want anything to do with it. So he's like, he just can't live here anymore. And like I said, my son were my priority. So I'm like, well, I'm leaving too then, So,
I
and his
can
thought was, oh, he could go live with the other parent. But for me, it was like, no, no, I've been the primary parent. So that's fine. I'll leave. So that's when things got really hard. That's
Yeah.
when like our lives shifted completely. And I went from like being part-time to having to like just build this up like full-time and make enough to like pay rent and help my oldest son was going to college and help with that and his car and insurance and phones and like all the things from this little part-time business as a virtual assistant, no less. And so, I built it up somehow in 2 weeks. I built it up to full time where I could at least take care of like the basic need. And so I'm like, okay, so at least the basic stuff was taken care of. But there wasn't much room for anything other than our basic needs. And so that led to burnout because I'm like, okay, more hours means more money. So then that again was like back at this very uncomfortable place of just really burning the candle at both ends and still feeling like, why is it still not enough? And it just became this like vicious, ugly cycle. In the meantime, I'm still trying to like help my son through, his health because that was not like an overnight thing. It took several years. And so it was a lot. And I was this close to going back to corporate, to saying, okay, I'm going to have to go back to corporate because that's where the big paycheck was at. And then, so a couple of things happened. 2020 hit. And so there was no going back to corporate in that moment. But I also hired a coach. And at a time when there was no extra money, and, it was scary that if any one of my clients cut back on their hours, that I might not be able to make rent. That was a big investment in myself, and that was just another really big leap that I made, and like a bet in myself. And what this coach said to me is, I gave her my concerns, and so she said, okay, because I told her I had booked this appointment before I decided to go back to corporate. So I kept the appointment with her to not like just not show up. And then I was honest with her and I said, you know what, I've decided to go back to corporate. Okay, why? And so we talked through that. And she said, if we could eliminate these things that are not working for you, would you still like give it a shot for another year? I said, yeah, of course. Yes, of course I love what I do. So she said, well, let's try something. Let's try to work on it. I'm like, okay. And so I tried it and I went with it and we created a strategy and it worked. And a year later, I was in a completely different place. I had completely shifted my mindset. We had completely reworked my packages and the way that I was working and eliminated the things that I didn't like and added more of what I did. And she just really helped me see that at a time when all I could do was like try to stay above water. Like I didn't have the capacity with everything going on with like my business and my son's health to like see beyond what was right in front of me. And that was game changer, a game changer. Not only that, she was a business coach who worked with human design and astrology. So it was like this whole other woo-woo thing. And
Mhm.
it gave me also permission to understand how I work as a manifesting generator and understand how my energy works and then align my business to that as opposed to the other way around, like letting the client decide how it works and then try to adjust myself. So that
Mm.
was that was a game changer for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to, like, rewind and, like, slow some things down. Okay,
Mhm.
you said there's so many things that I wanna go deeper into, but first, I just wanna commend you on, like, what courage and total badassery to be like, No, I am not gonna compromise my son for you." You know, like, truly, there's gonna be so many listeners who are just, like, slow clapping in the background because, Sonia, I can see different decisions being made of somebody who was not as courageous and badass as you, as being like, "What am I gonna do? I only have a part-time job. I feel stuck." And so I'm not saying this to judge or blame or try to shame anyone who is in that scenario, but more to highlight you and also to the person who is in that situation who may feel like they're stuck or there's no way out. Sonia's such a great
Mhm.
example that
Thank
yes,
you.
it is
Mhm.
it is possible.
Yeah.
So I like
Thank you.
that had to be said. Like if there was
Thank
no other
you.
like if there was not enough time for anything else like that, I just had to commend you, because you just kind of blipped through it. I'm like, okay, we're going to go back to that. I'll let you talk, but we have to go back to that because out of all the things you said, like that was some strong mama energy of just like, hell no.
Yeah. That's why, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And also that's why I say my sons are my motivators. Every step of the way, every hard decision has been made with how does this them and like what is best for them, whether they think it is right now or not. And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that I've made all the right decisions. That just I really truly have always intended to do everything with the best outcome in mind for what I believed was best for them. And I've made mistakes, but I had to go back and correct them. And that was one, right? That was a course correct right there.
Mm-hmm.
That, it took me a while to figure out, but yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And then the other just like level of badassery that I do want to ask more questions. You said like in 2 weeks you got the basic needs covered. And what I love about what you said is that it led to burnout because you thought because I need more money, I need to work more. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this now that you are where you are. We both know that that's not actually true, that more work means more money. So, like, what would you say to the you at that time who was just like trying to hustle and going back to what you knew that worked in corporate? Like, what would you say to her today?
It all comes down to working on your self worth. I had no idea that what I was doing was of that much value. This coach had to
Mm.
start putting that in front of me to tell me I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of started this thing out of nowhere. Like literally I had heard about virtual assistants and I what attracted me to that work was that was able to work from home. And so I didn't know coaching was a thing at the time. I just kind of just started taking the next step. So I didn't know what is somebody that was doing what I was doing could charge. So it really took like betting on myself, like allowing myself to invest in myself, even when I didn't have the money for it. To like, okay, this person knows. Like I had heard her on a podcast, and I'm like, yeah, she knows what she's talking about. Like I just resonated with her. Her energy felt right. So I just went with it. So that's why, like, it's if you can't see it for yourself, this is what I would say. If you cannot see that for yourself, know that it is out there for you, and it's okay to ask somebody else for help. And sometimes we do have to make an investment, but I promise you that investment is coming back, like tenfold, if not more. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no way you can't invest in yourself and not get that. That doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes. Sometimes we're like, oops, I hired the wrong person. that's okay. Like, let's course correct. And the next person will be right, or ask for referrals, or you take those steps, and then the mistake becomes a wash. It becomes data.
It
It just
becomes
becomes
data. Yes.
yes, it becomes data. And it's like, oh, that was part of the journey.
Mhm.
And so now I gotta keep moving, like next. So that's
Yeah.
that's more than I think that's what I would say to anybody, whatever the struggle is, there's always somebody out there that could help with whatever your situation is. We're not meant to figure it all out on our own sometimes. If sometimes when we're drowning, we just need a little bit of support when we can't figure it out on our own.
Mhm.
Um, although I do sometimes strongly believe that we have the answers inside of us. Like we can sit in meditation and call in our higher self and get those answers for ourselves. But sometimes that answer is reach out to so and so.
Mhm.
They can guide you and they can teach you. So,
Yeah. I love that, and I love how you phrase it as bet on you. Bet on
mhm.
you. And that I think a lot of people can relate to, "Oh, or I've heard this a lot, I'm sure you have too, like, "Oh, I'd love to invest in coaching, but I just don't have the money." And it sounds like from your experience at least, and also like mine, if I'm being honest, it's like you have to come at it from a place of, "But what do you actually need?" Not like, "How much money do you have in the bank?" Because
Mm.
I know like I heard one of my clients before say something like, "Oh, I don't have any extra money to invest in myself." And it sounds like what you're saying is no, you have to invest in yourself. It's not just like if I have extra funds, like you have to prioritize yourself first.
Yeah, I believe so. I strongly believe so. I feel that is one of the lessons that keeps showing up in my life. At every stage of my life, it's that investment in ourselves. I mean, it's so easy for us to say, oh, I'm gonna, when we're young, like, I'm gonna go to college, and we figure out, right, a way to pay for it, whether somebody helps us or we get a loan or we grants, whatever it is, we have no problem getting into debt to like make that investment. To me,
Mhm.
coaching programs, trainings, conferences, things of that nature are no different than than like a formal university education. For me, in fact, if anything, I feel like I get more out of, trainings and coaches and then not that my schooling wasn't important. It was amazing. It's gotten me where I am, but I just feel like you get a lot more. I feel sometimes from coaches and like very specific trainings that you need and that you can invest in sometimes than even a college education. I feel like a college education, of course, opens doors, but sometimes it's just getting that diploma, right? To like,
Mhm.
okay, this gets me here. Uh, you've proven to somebody that you can follow the system and this program, basically. But yeah, I just think that never stops. I think that if we are wanting to achieve more and wanting to get somewhere different, whether it's in personal or in our business, an investment I feel is necessary.
I love this. And for our listeners who are like, well, speaking of investing, I think Sonia's amazing and I would love to follow
Mm,
her and talk to her and see
mm,
what she's up to. How
mm,
can our listeners follow you or get a hold of you or send you like some love and hearts
mm,
from this episode?
mm. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Well, my website is bluechakrastudio.com. And on Instagram, I'm at Blue Chakra Studio. So yeah, thank you. All the things that I do are there. So
Okay, I will put that in
appreciate
the show notes. Don't worry, listeners who were like getting out pen and paper or like pausing, like I got you. It's gonna be
it.
in the show notes. And I have one
Awesome.
final question that I ask all my guests. And that is
Mhm.
if you were an item in a coffee shop, so you could be a drink, a pastry, you could be, I don't know, a poster, anything in the coffee shop, what would you be and why?
That is so cute. I'm probably gonna have to be like a pumpkin spice latte.
Tis the season. At least at the time of this recording. Yeah, that's appropriate.
Exactly. Probably, it's like that. It's like a latte, but throw a little flavor and spice in there.
I love it. I love it.
That would be it. What would you be?
Oh, I so simple and basic, just like a black coffee, honestly. And I feel like
Ah,
that fits me because like First of all, that is actually what I order. I look at all the different drinks that look fancy, and sometimes I order it, but then it ends up being too sweet because I don't really have
Mm,
a sweet tooth. So the black
mhm.
coffee so because of that, but also because I'm kind of like a straight shooter. I'll tell you. Like there's no creamer. Like I'm just gonna tell you. So also be prepared if you ask me a question. Like you're gonna get it straight.
Awesome. I love that. Very cool. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you
Well,
so
thank you
much,
so much.
Sonia. This was so fun.
Thank you. Yeah, this was fun. Thank you. I appreciate your time.